G7 Ministers Meeting, June 2021. There's a very interesting development. And global tax plans. We have infrastructure plan, health crisis, climate change. These are the various agenda which was discussed in Cornwall. The G7 is the shorthand for the Group of Seven, and organizational leaders from some of the world's largest economies: Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the US. The 47th G7 summit took place last week, that is 11th to 13th June 2021, in the United Kingdom, Cornwall, while it holds the presidency of the G7, UK. Now, the finance ministers from the Group of Seven leading nations, they met, agreed on the proposal aimed at ensuring that companies pay tax in each country in which they operate, rather than shifting the profit to low tax havens elsewhere. So each companies pay tax in the country where they operate. The ministers also agreed to the second proposal, which would levy a minimum tax rate of 15% on profit in each overseas country where the companies operate, regardless of their profit margin. In the United States, several top Republican politicians have voiced opposition to the deal. It is always there when it comes to opposition. Details of the agreement are also due to be discussed by the wider group of 20 next month. Again, the same subject. Do they agree for the levy of 15% tax rates? Again, this will minimize the role of tax havens, because that's tax evasion in substance. We know it. So we need to make sure integrity of the transaction, integrity of the overall business is not challenged. You don't go and register just to pay minimum investments and then evade the tax that runs 100 times more than what you have invested in one country. So the tax havens are nothing but tax evasion centers. So offshore has got no meaning. Everything has to be onshore. That's what we should instill. So the small islands which are tax havens, just to make sure that the global tax evaders in the name of corporates comes in and they put minimum investments so they get free money. That should be discouraged. And that's what G7 has realized now. Now, when it comes to infrastructure plan, the Group of Seven richest democracies sought to counter China's growing influence by offering developing nations an infrastructure plan. Now, this is politics. Whatever be the consequence, the global sustainability should not be disturbed. We need developing world. We need developed world. The free trade should take place. Infrastructure should take place. Momentum in terms of balancing act should always be there, so that the common man is lifted and income inequality is reduced. So, whichever be the countries, we have to look at absolutely what is the global citizenship is all about. The G7 and its allies will use B3W initiative to mobilize private sector capital in areas like climate, health and health security, digital technology, and gender equity and equality. Gender equity and equality is very important. G7 will take that. President Biden pushed for a more unified approach to combat the pandemic and urged his counterparts to embrace cooperations aimed at building up world healthcare infrastructure so that it will be able to respond more quickly to future emergencies. Unified approach to combating the pandemic. A group of 7 countries will provide 1 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses over the next year and work with the private sector, the G20 and other countries to increase the contribution over months to come. The COVAX facility, backed up by World Health Organization and a global alliance for the vaccines and immunization, is very important. The purpose is to secure 2 billion vaccine doses for lower income countries by the end of 2021. So we need 2 billion doses only for lower income countries. The G7 on climate change, when they discuss taking climate change and safeguarding global biodiversity, laying the groundwork for United Nations pivotal COP26 Environmental Summit in Scotland in November. Safeguarding the global biodiversity, laying the groundwork for United Nations pivotal COP26 Environmental Summit. They have to finalize new conservation and emission targets to curb climate change. They have to finalize the new conservation and emissions targets to curb climate change. But before the pledges had been formally adopted, environmental campaigners, they do their part, and as they lack enforcement and the necessary scope. So the pledges have come, at the same time the protest is there because they want a unified approach to protect the future world. That's fair. So the G7 will be discussed. G7 will discuss again in G20 the same issues to make sure that we have entire world come to terms. So irrespective of the political divide, we have to unify our common mission. Global governance should prosper. Common man should have value advantage out of these meetings.